Jenny. I've been painting for over 40 years and I use the wet into wet or alla prima method, and I want to share with you what I have learned. You can oil paint too, so let's have some fun. We're going to be painting Radio Flyer Bear. I've got my canvas prepared. This is painted on a black canvas. You can buy black canvases, or you can take a white canvas and put black gesso, paint black gesso on it, let it completely dry, and then transfer your pattern with white transfer paper. You can get white transfer paper at any art or craft store. Let me show you the colors. We've got titanium white, cad yellow, yellow ochre, cad red, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, sap green, Prussian blue, and ivory black green. So I've got sap green and black, sap green and yellow ochre, and sap green, cad yellow, and white to make a brighter green. And I'm going to start in the background with varying shades of blue. Now I want this to be very, very subtle. I'm just going to use little X strokes. Going to use little X strokes. I want this to be very dark, so I'm trying not to get it too bright up here. If I get it too bright, I could just add a little bit more of the darker color. You can see I'm just using little X strokes, and I'm keeping it kind of modeled. I'm not trying to fill in this entire area back here. I'm just giving it a glow of color back in here. I'm going to go right down to my bear. Oops, that was too much. Get too much paint, you just pick it up, move it, wipe your brush off, pick it up, move it to another location. That's the nice thing about doing the wet on wet method. It's very easy to correct things, to change colors. It's almost like there's a little bit of glow going on in the background. And it's going to get darker as we go. I can also add, if I wanted to, a little bit of green, dark green. I'll show you. A little bit of alizarin crimson, add it to that little blue mix. I want to get a little bit of a purple mix going here. Okay, and I'm going to start taking that purple down here in the bottom area. I'm going to keep this nice and dark. Prussian blue, and then alizarin crimson. Dark, dark, dark. I'm just going back and mixing a darker color. Same colors. Over here, that same color, bringing it under the wagon, up into this area here. Under the wagon. A little bit of dark. We will adjust these colors later on as we need to. Here's a little bit of a close-up on that top green area. As you can see, I'm just using I've got a number 6 filbert brush, and I'm just doing little strokes to kind of get the idea of those Christmas branches. I'm going to keep in mind that these branches are going to be growing in different directions on this tree. This is an artificial tree. One of those little ones that has a little burlap bag at the bottom. So I'm trying to keep my strokes thin but random, all coming down. As you see, I've added a kind of a line down the center to kind of give me an idea, and then I bring my strokes in to that center line. This is the dark underpainting. Some of these are going to be coming straight out at me, right in here. Might be some coming out straight. Some are going to be actually headed down. We can adjust our strokes as we need, but I want to get some variations in here. I don't want them all going in the same direction, or even really pointing all in the same. Some of them being, just look at your own Christmas tree and you can see that you're going to be able to see some of these branches at different angles. Okay. Again, these are going to be, some of these back in here I won't highlight, they'll be darker. Alright, now I'm going to go to my next color. You can see this color a lot better. My light is going to be coming from this direction, so I'm going to keep that in mind as I go up here and add a little highlight to some of these branches, these twigs on these branches. I'm not going to highlight every single one. I'm not even going to try to highlight individual dark areas. I'm just adding a little bit more branches. These are the ones that are out front. So I want to leave some of those in the background showing there. Remember, these were down, but again, my light is coming from this direction, so I'm not going to highlight these as much. I've got more highlights coming that will actually help us. In determining the brightness of this tree. So right now I'm just adding just enough highlight so that I can see these. Maybe some of these back here in the background help kind of fill out a little bit. Okay. You can kind of get the general idea. Then as I go to my next highlight color, it's going to be brighter, and I'm going to pay attention to this area over here more. Keeping my strokes nice and thin. These are cone shaped, these little branches. So I'm making sure that I have some of these little twigs that cross in front. All right, now my last final highlight color, I really am going to just do right around the bear's head. That is my focal point, is right in here, right around the bear's head. So let's pull back a little bit here. Right here's my bear's ear right there. See right there? So I'm going to highlight just those branches that are kind of right here on this side of the bear. And a lot of these are just the tips. Once I get my bear in here, I can kind of see where I might need to highlight these even a little bit more. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow ochre, straight yellow ochre, and kind of give some of my branches a little bit of highlight with yellow ochre. Just adds interest. You'll notice that I have left areas that are dark. I have not covered up all my dark. Now I'm going to go back with a little bit of white and phthalo blue, and I'm going to add a little bit of what are called lowlights or reflective highlights, mostly on the left-hand side of my branches that are away from the light. Light bounces all over the place. So it might be reflecting on something else going on around. around the room. Again, I'm going to wait until I get my bear in there, and then I can look and see what else I might need to add. Okay, it's kind of hard to see my pattern now. I'm going to go ahead and add a few lines. I don't normally do this for when I'm painting, but I want you to be able to see my pattern in this video. So I'm going to go ahead and add, kind of outline those, my bear pattern just a little bit. So that you can see it. Right in here is my wagon. And there's the handle. I can go ahead and add just a little bit of burnt umber to that handle with a little bit of color in it, just a little bit of lightener in it, so you can see that handle too. There, that makes it a little easier for you to see. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this little ball back in here. This little ball is the like I said, this is a little artificial Christmas tree that I had around the house. I'm going to start by adding dark right around the edges. I want this to fade into my blue back in here, so I'm not going to try to define that real good. I'm just going to softly put that in. And as I get up here, right here are some of the lines. Let me put some of those lines in there for you so you can see. It's kind of hard to see this on a black background when you're on camera. So see, right there's the lines of that are on the pattern, okay? Right there. So I'm going to start off with some dark umber and black right in the darkest areas, which are going to be right up against the ball. There's the ball right there. Back in here is going to be dark. Okay. Then I'm going to take burnt sienna, add a little bit of burnt sienna to my umber, and start out getting a little bit more burnt sienna in there. This is a burlap bag, so this texture is going to be pretty rough. So I'm just leaving the texture of my brush strokes in there. As I come up to more of the top up here, I'm going to start adding a little bit of yellow ochre to my brush, which has the burnt sienna on it. Burnt sienna, maybe straight burnt sienna back here in the background, up against the wagon. Now a little straight burnt sienna for the highlight of the top of this. Letting it blend down into my burnt sienna. Getting right up next to my wagon handle. Down in here is going to be darker. Burnt sienna and burnt umber in there. If I get it too light, I can always add a touch of black to darken it. This area right underneath here is going to get a little bit more light. This up here, these are ties, okay, that are tying that burlap bag in a round ball. So I'm going to let them come down, keeping a little bit of wrinkly. The outside edges up here, this would be brighter. Right around our light would be coming down, it would be hitting this edge. And I'm just letting those colors blend together right in there. Right in here would be a little darker. Added a little black to my brush just to get that indent right there a little dark. And then blending these colors together. Now if I needed to add a little bit of more of a highlight right to the edge right here, I would take a little bit of yellow ochre, add a little white to it, just to get a little bit of a highlight right on this rounded edge of this ball right there. Just gently blend that back. I'm not trying to, again, this is not the focal point of my painting. I just want this to show up. A little bit of highlight on that edge. Up a little blue. Wipe my brush off. I don't want this to be bright over here. Just kind of blending this ball into this background a little bit there. All right. This handle back here, go ahead and paint that in while I'm in that area. I'm just going to put a little bit of dark black on the left side. Taking a little bit of lighter blue and just blending right down. Just picked up some blue and white on my brush, a little bit across the top, right down the right side where it would be picking up the light. This top right here and left side would have more light on it. Maybe a touch back on that back edge on the inside, right there. This front edge would be, I picked up a little bit of that dark purple that I had on my brush, or that I had on my palette. If I get my handle too thick, I can always go back in and kind of thin it out with the colors in the background on that ball back there. Again, this is just an extra benefit of painting in this dark on dark method. A little bit of highlight right on the top edges of this, where the light might be striking it right in through there. All right. Let's work on our little wagon a little bit. I'm going to take alizarin crimson with a little black in it and paint in these really dark areas right in the bottom of the wagon. This is alizarin crimson with a little black. It's just to darken, dull that alizarin crimson a little bit. We want this to be very dark inside this wagon. It's hard to see, I know, but just fill in. Let me put a line around the area that I'm doing right there and right there. See that area right along the inside on the right and the left of the bear. That's the area that we're doing in this dark alizarin crimson. Now the top edge of our wagon, right here along the back, we're doing in straight cad red. Cad red light. Okay, I'm going to do that on this back edge here too. And then I'm going to fill in this rim of the front edge of the bear, or of the wagon, with this red. This is just going to be a little bit of underpainting. We'll highlight this here in a minute. I want to get that brighter red for my rim right there. I'm going to go ahead and take the alizarin crimson and black, and I'm going to start painting this bottom part of this wagon. Right under that lip, there's going to be a shadow from that lip, so I'm going to take alizarin crimson and put it right under the edge of that lip of that wagon, right there. And I'm going to pull it down to my letters. right in here, as you can see right here, here's that brighter red, that's cad red around the rim. Just base coating it in there right now. Then I've taken the cad red with a little black in it, and I'm going to paint the bottom of part of my wagon. Just go ahead and fill that whole thing in with cad red and black. This to be a dark red. I'm going to go around my letters at this point. I'm just filling this in. Alizarin crimson. I can pull this down a little bit in between my letters. I don't want to lose my pattern, so I'm just carefully pulling this in, down. And where I can see in between my letters just a little bit. I'm trying to keep off of my letters because when I put my white in there, I don't want them to turn pink. So I'm just filling a little bit of this color in where I can see. It's going to be fine. This wagon is pretty dark. All right. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the cad red. I'm going to wipe my brush, go back to cad red, and I'm going to outline the edges of my wagon, and I'm going to pull that color in. So I'm just going to pull a little bit of that color in on the corners right there. Letting it stay darker right up under the rim right there. I'm just going to pull this down. Getting a little bit more paint on my brush so that I have some to pull into the wagon. I'm going to take a little bit more paint. I'm going to pull a little bit of more paint right up there on that lip of that wagon. Just brighten that a little bit. Go over here to this edge, pull this color in. Little line. Pull this color in. I'm going to take a line of this right across the bottom because I want that wagon to show up a little bit more than it does. So I'm just pulling in a little bit of brighter color right in through there. I'm going to leave underneath of the edge of the wagon right there, of that ledge there. I'm going to leave that darker. That's going to be a cast shadow from this ridge or this lip up here. Pull this in, pull some up into my bottom of my, right underneath the bottom of my letters. There, right there, pull that up in there. On this side, I'm going to go back and highlight this one more time. I'm going to take a touch of yellow ochre, tiny touch of white, yellow ochre, oh, maybe even an Indian, let's take Indian yellow, little Indian yellow into my cad red. Right on this edge right here. I'm going to brighten that edge. Take this out just a little bit farther out. Indian yellow, cad red. Right along the top of that lip. Right along the top edge of this lip. touch of white to that so it'll show up. So that it's a little less transparent. Right back here, the light might catch that edge right there just a touch. And right along the edge next to the bear right there. Light is going to catch that a little bit more. Don't want it to be too pink or anything. Make sure I keep it on the orangey side. All right. A little bit of reflective light might be coming from the other side to reflect right there. Tiny bit, just to kind of show us that corner. So pull a little bit of that down. All right. Right here, I'm just adding a little bit more of the straight cad red right next to my letters. Straight cad red. Underneath of the wagon, I'm going to take a little bit of phthalo blue and black and make a kind of a dark black, well, gray, dark gray, a little darker than that, and put in those, there's like little axles, little things that hook onto those, that hook the wheels onto the wagon. Just put a little bit of that color on there. I'm not trying to create anything other than the indication. This back wheel back here, a little bit of color right along that edge. I want this to stay dark. So I'm going to pull that dark in. That's a little bright, so maybe go back in with some blue. I just want that wheel. Just the edge of it to just kind of show up back there. There we go, that's better. This front wheel, this edge right is this eel, or the wheel on the left is turned towards us, so it's going to be an oval. This back edge might have a little bit brighter. This edge will be a little bit brighter. I'm using a light gray there, right here, a little light gray. This edge a little light gray. Most of this wheel is going to be a very dark gray, almost black, except right in the center right there. That's the back edge of that hubcap inner ear area right there. I'm just pulling a little bit of that color in there. Wipe my brush out because I want this area right here to be darker. Right up next to this ball. Part of this wheel is going to be covered up by the ball. So I'm just going to go ahead and put black, a real dark gray, black. Little oval shape right there. Again, I put a little bit of a gray highlight right on the back edge of this wheel. Right along the top, right there. I'm curving this in. This back edge has a little bit brighter. This front edge right here is going to show up a little bit more right there. That's the front edge side right there. Highlight there. That's the rim of the wheel right there. A little bit of highlight right there. And that back edge right there gets a little highlight. Inside of the wheels, right in here, there's a little bit of red where that hubcap is. This one needs to stay oval with a touch of red right in the center. Now this wheel over here is really kind of facing us sideways. I mean, it's full towards us, so it's not going to, the inside rim is going to be completely round. It's taking this same brush and getting us some nice round shape right there for the inside of that wheel. Setting my brush down and just pressing and letting it sweep around in a circle. I can always straighten it up if I don't get my circle quite circle-y enough. Brighten it just a little bit. Go back to my gray. Letting it get a little darker on this inside right in here, because this is inside where it would be in shadow more. So this area right here, keeping it dark. Up on top of the wheel right here might catch a little bit more light, but not too much. It's underneath of the wagon after all. Rounding that wheel out. Over here on this side, making sure I get a little bit of highlight on the outside edge of that wheel on this side. Again, I'm adding that little round circle. This is from Crimson Circle. Highlight in the circle with just a touch of red to make it look like it's got some depth. Add a touch more to this side right there. There. Okay. Let's work on our bear. Now, the nice thing about this bear is that really the only thing we need to concern ourselves with are the darks and the lights to get the shape of the bear. So I'm going to start out, same brush, I'm going to start out with some dark. If you'll notice, the important part start out with this head. There we go. Right up in here, I'm going to start out with some really dark brown, taking burnt umber and black, and I'm just tapping using the same filbert brush and just tapping in the ears. As I go out, I'm going to pull in a little bit more burnt sienna because I want it to get a little bit lighter, creating that hollow for the ear. And then I'm going to take I haven't cleaned my brush, I've just picked up a little bit of yellow ochre, and I'm tapping. See how I'm just tapping, tapping, tapping. The reason I'm doing that is, see that nice soft edge that we're getting? And I can blend a little bit of that color. Tap, tap, tap. Going back in, pulling a little bit of that. You'll see how I take and let my brush go into that other color that I have there, and then I go back out. Even as I go to the edge where my color of my background has touched that pattern, I don't care about that. I like that. I want that to just add that little extra blending to my bear. All right, let's go back more. Let's get this side of the face is a little bit darker. So I'm going to take a little bit of my burnt sienna on my brush, tap some of that in on this side of his nose, up around his eyes a little bit, right in there. This I'm tapping because I want that stroke. I want that rough texture. Darken this a little bit over here. I'm going to go ahead and pull burnt umber in there, right up on this side of his head, darker. Right, darker right down along the bottom of his chin, right in here. Right here on this side of his arm, I'm going to go ahead and put some of that dark in there. Right now I'm looking for darks. I'm looking for darks. Right down along this side of his arm next to his body. Again, I'm tapping, tapping, tapping. That's all I'm doing. I'm not painting. I'm not painting. I'm stroking. I'm not stroking. I'm tapping to get that texture in there. On this side of his arm, away from the light a little more. I've got burnt sienna on my brush now. Maybe add a little bit of the burnt umber occasionally, just to keep that on the dark side. Tapping, tapping, tapping. Inside of his little hands area. Tapping, dark. Inside of his feet, right down next to the wagon, will be nice and dark. Bottoms of his feet here. Dark, dark, dark. Back with some burnt sienna. Now I'm going to go back with burnt sienna into the areas that I've added the dark, and I'm going to mix this burnt sienna in along those dark areas. to start picking up a little bit of the yellow ochre. Tapping that into my burnt sienna. See how I'm just, as I'm tapping, it's mixing that color. Right along his bottom of his nose, at the top of his lips, right there, would be lighter, and his little chin right there would be lighter. I'm going to add more highlight to that, but I can add a little bit of this texture in this golden, this yellow ochre. Tap, tap, tap. The key here is to let this brush stroke keep that texture for you. The other key here is don't over mix these colors. If I keep tapping on the same place over and over and over again, it's going to turn into mud. See how I'm just tapping and walking away, tapping and walking away. His eyebrows up here will be a little lighter, so I'm just going to tap on some color and leave it. Right down his nose is a little brighter. And down here, a little brighter right across the top of his nose. I'm also letting the color, that black canvas, work for me. You can see right there, see how it's the color of the canvas is showing through a little bit? It's because I'm not going back over and over and over it and covering it all up. I'm letting my brush stroke, my little taps, stand. I get right up next to his nose all the way around, but leave it, no paint on it, so I can go back and put a nice dark nose in there. Right now I'm working mostly with yellow ochre because I know the right side of his face is going to be brighter. His little eyebrow right up in here is going to be brighter, right up next to his eye. Eyebrow. Shaping the head. See, we've got a little bit of a shape of the head. I'll round it out. Very little paint on my brush so that I get a little bit of a lighter over here, but it's mixing in with my dark, so it's not too bright. Maybe add a little, go back with a little bit of burnt sienna right there. Keep that nice and dark on that edge. All right, down the front of his arm, right down through here, it's going to be brighter. Add a little paint. Give myself a little direction. Right along the back of his head right there. You can see it's going to be a little lighter. The light's coming down, hitting right in through there. I'm letting these colors blend together on this arm. This arm is going to be less light than this arm, so I let these colors blend a little bit more on this side. Always be thinking about where's your light coming from. Get a little reflective bounce of light right there. This side right here. Just kind of let those colors blend together there for the front. All right, go back to my yellow ochre for this side. Right along the top of his arm right here is going to be a little bit brighter all the way down. We're going to add a highlight here so it's not imperative that we get as bright as we can right now. I'm just creating texture and I'm creating the shape right along that arm right out there. Again, start working on the feet. On this side might be a little bit darker, adding a little burnt sienna to my yellow ochre to get this side a little bit less bright. Same with this side over here. I don't mind if a little bit of that red gets mixed into there. Reflective light. It's going to be there. See over here, this side, again, a little reflective light might mix in with this split there before we get to the top right up here where it would be brighter. Still using that little push stroke of this very small brush. I'm using it on the corner edge, this edge right here, this little corner right there. You see that? So far all I've done is just use that same push stroke so that I can keep that texture. What makes our bear look fluffy. All right, now then, I want to go back and add some brighter highlights. I want to take a little bit of the red, cad red, into my yellow ochre, and I'm going to add white to it. I want a nice bright yellowy orange. Add a little bit of this to some highlighted areas. Maybe right on his cheek a little bit, right in there. A little brighter, still keeping that stroke. Right next to his eye over here. Right along the outside of the ear, keeping that soft. going to go back for some straight yellow ochre and white. Maybe a touch of that Indian yellow in it. I want a nice bright highlight for these outside edges where the light is coming through and hitting that bear. I can give some highlight to his nose. Helps push it out a little bit, make it look like it's coming towards us. Top of his ear is going to be catching the light over here. I'm smoothing out a couple of areas right on the top of his nose, right along the bottom of that nose, just a little bit. I want a little bit more definition there, and those would be areas where it wouldn't maybe be quite so fuzzy. Inside of his ear, maybe front of his paws. I want to give a little bit of highlight to the inside of his paws and his feet. Just some strokes. I'm going to go ahead at this point and fill in his nose there and his eyes with some black. Keep them in the lines. We'll add highlights. I need to deepen some of these shadows. I might add a little black here. Now the front of his of the bear is got various shades of color. These little buttons I'm going to go ahead and do and just kind of indicate them. A little bit of gray. The button right there. And then give him a touch of highlight right on the outside edge to give him a little bit of a shape. Then the colors on the inside are varying shades of blues and greens, golds, this little guy is from my bear collection. I have a small bear collection, but it's a collection. He's wearing a little plaid jumpsuit. So I'm just going to give little indications of color. The only ones that I care too much about are right here. I want these strokes right here and right there to have a little more definition, because that kind of gives us an indication of that, the shape of that leg. The rest of these are kind of like where we can just seek a little color. Of his little outfit. And I'm using the colors that are in the painting in other locations. To just suggest that outfit. Okay, I'm going to use a liner brush. This is a liner brush. This is a number 1 liner brush. I'm going to take a little bit of my liquid clear, or my painting medium, and I'm going to put it on that brush, and I'm just going to set it down on my palette. Then when I go over here, I'm going to grab some of that light blue that I already have mixed on my palette, and I'm getting my brush with a nice thin coat of that. I'm going to sit my finger down, just sit it down, and I'm going to this little finger down so that I can steady my hand, and I'm going to put a light blue line of color right there. This is just going to be the color of his eyes right there. Right there. Now if you wanted a green-eyed bear, you could do green right there. I'm going to take that same brush. I'm going to add a tiny dot right to the top of the eye. A couple of places at the top. Now, where you put this little dot will really kind of give you the feeling. I'm just lining the bottom edge of that blue because I got a lot of paint right there. There we go. Little tiny line right along the bottom, kind of blending that together a little bit. See, I touched that and I pulled it up. Touched this, pulled it up. More to the right. Okay, I'm going to take black, thin it out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I've already got quite a bit of color or black around the eyes. So if you don't, you can add that black around the eyes. We want to make sure that we have a little bit of fur coming down. But we want to make sure that the eye has a little bit of black kind of around it. Just blending the colors in a little bit. I'm going to take my liner brush and I'm going to add a line right across this area right here of the nose. Blending the bottom of it away. I just want a little bit of a highlight on the top of that nose right there. Again, if I need to, bring my color or my fur closer to the bear's nose, I can do that. Right now. I also want to highlight right along his upper lip right here. Make that a little more pronounced. So I'm going back to that brighter yellow ochre and white mixture that I had right there. I'm going to blend that out a little bit. Give his chin a little bit of a highlight right there. Now one of the last things I'll do, I'm going to go ahead and work on the ball next. One of the last things I'll do is I'll go look at my bear and my painting, and I will see if I need to brighten the brights and darken the darks. Right now I see a couple areas that I wanted to adjust, but I'll go back and work on that towards the end, just to highlight, brighten my brights and darken my darks. All right. Now, we're going to work on our ball. Well, I'm going to add a little bit of a line around the outside edge so that you can see it on this nice dark canvas. A little bit of an outline. There, now you can see. Alright, to first start off, I'm taking my dark purple color that I made with alizarin crimson and Prussian blue, and I'm going to put some of that right along the bottom right or left edge, bottom left edge of my ball. Then I'm going to take Prussian blue and white, and I'm going to put a little bit of a layer or a little bit area, again, left bottom edge, maybe a little bit right in there next to the wagon, a little bit more right in through here. All I'm doing now is I'm base coating in some colors to kind of start giving my ball the spherical shape that it needs to be. Keeping the colors that are on the right, the left, bottom edge, next to the wagon wheel right here, darker. All right, as I go up, I will start adding a little bit more white. So that I have a lighter blue right along this top edge. Now you can keep that line as dark, that line where the seams are, it's that line right there and right there. You can keep that line darker. Just let your black show through a little bit. I want this ball to be a little on the mottled side. I'm not going to blend this or smooth this all out. This is a baseball. It's smooth, but it has a little bit of dimples here and there in the material. Not so much dimples as just you can tell that it's not completely smooth. Right there's the other line. All right. Now I'm going to wipe my brush out, and right along the edges where those different colors mix, I'm just going to smooth that out. Just gently smooth those areas out. I'm going to step back and look at my ball after I get this done and make sure it looks like a ball. Is it round in appearance? Is it darker at the bottom? If I need to, I will go back in and add some darks along the bottom. Make sure I have a definite darkness at the bottom. This ball is going to be a white ball, but right now all I'm doing is adding shades of color in there so that it turns out to look like a ball, a sphere. All right. Now then, I'm going to take a little bit of white, and I'm going to start right along the top edge here. I'm going to put some white down. That's going to be my brighter spot, right up in this area, right up in here. So I'm going to put a little bit of that down right along the edge of my ball and let it disappear over here into this shaded area. This area right here, I'm going to add a little bit of that and blend it in to get that a little bit brighter. Right there. Just gently blend it in. Grab some more white and through here. This center area and the top edge is going to be brighter. So I'm going to kind of turn it a little bit whiter. Right here, I don't want to forget that I have those stitches right there. I don't want to get over into the stitches, but I do want to add a little bit of this brighter right along that top edge. I'll let this go down over my wheel right there just a touch. Blend that in. This edge over here, I kind of let it disappear. A little bit of a white glow, or a little bit of a extra glow right there by pulling that down. That's kind of my reflective glow. Wipe my brush out. Back out just a touch more white right in the top of this ball right there. Okay, now this the stitches in this ball. There's a line. I'm using a tiny bit of alizarin crimson and black, and I'm just going to go in and just indicate that line a little bit right there. Just going to draw that line back in. Then I'm going to go use my liner brush again. I still should have some of that liquid clear on my palette. I'm going to take a alizarin crimson into my medium. Maybe add a touch of the red, the cad red, and I'm going to very carefully indicate some of these stitches. Now these stitches are kind of like little crow's feet that kind of go down. Use that line, that center line, just give myself a little indication of where those might be. They're going to go out from the center line in a kind of a crow's feet pattern. Just sitting my pinky down so I have a nice steady hand to do these. I'm going to let them kind of disappear as I get down there. Over here, I'm going to go back with just a touch of straight alizarin crimson. And right at the top here where these are a little brighter, I'm going to highlight a few of these. But only right at the top here. Maybe a touch of these over here might get a little highlight. Right there where the light would be hitting them a little stronger, right on that where the light might be hitting them there. I'm going to let them disappear down through here. Make sure my edge is nice and round. Now, softening that edge right there just a touch. But I want that highlight to be brighter right there. So I added just a touch more white. Alright, now the only thing left to do is the lettering. Again, I'm going to use my liner brush. I'm going to clean it out with a little bit of thinner, just so I don't have any of that red still in it. I'm going to add a little bit of the thinner, the medium to my paint. Again, I want to get a nice straight or pointy nice point on my brush, thinning my paint down so that it is of inky consistency. I've added a tiny bit of yellow to the point to where it almost just looks like a tinted white. And then I can go up here and I can follow my pattern. And put my letters in there. I'm letting my brush do a lot of the work for me. I'm not going to worry so much about these letters being perfect. This is an old wagon. It's a child's toy, so it might be hard used. Got a little bit of my red in there. I'm not going to worry about that. It might just end up looking like a reflection. The better brush that you have for this delicate work like this, the easier it's going to be on you. And if your paint doesn't come off your brush very easily, you need to add a little more of your medium. Kind of roll your brush. Get that paint on there nice and thick, but still with lots of medium on there. Alright, just another little bright highlight in the eye there. Now I'm looking for areas in my painting where I think it might need a little brightener, little lighter lights, brighter or darker darks. little nose, maybe a little. A little highlight on that button, maybe. Alright, I'm going to go back to my filbert. And I'm going to brighten my brights. I'm going to take some of that on my bear. I'll take some white, some yellow ochre, touch of Indian yellow, right on the arms right there. Right over here where the light might be hitting them a little bit more. Maybe even brighter. Right there. His face is the focal point of this whole painting. So right along his nose, I'm going to brighten up those eyes a little bit, those little eyebrows. His cheek. Not blending it in with the colors that we've already got up there, but just giving a little bit more emphasis around his eyes, bridge of his nose. Tops of his ears. Keeping my brush strokes fluffy. I'm in his fur, so I'm keeping the brush strokes fluffy. Round out his forehead a little bit there. On this side of his head, I think he needs a little bit more of the burnt sienna. I don't want him to be a total give him a little bit more color with that burnt sienna in a couple of places. Warm him up a little bit, I guess, would be what to say. Maybe warm up my shadow area over here a little bit with that burnt sienna. Again, I want to blend that away. Now, the other thing that I want to do is I want to take right along the bottom, take a little bit of white. I'm going to go back to my bigger 1-inch brush or any larger brush. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to add a little bit of highlight right down here along the bottom of the wagon. I'm going to use a light purple. And I'm going to just put a little bit of brighter highlight right down through here to kind of sit that wagon down. Right there in front of that wagon. A little bit fading back into underneath of the wagon, not too much. And I'm going to use my other brush because I want to be a little more careful right here. I'm going to put a little bit of this right underneath of that. Ball. And blend that a little bit back in here. Now I want the ball to have a little shadow under it, so I'm going to darken I'm taking a little bit of the straight Prussian blue. Pulling a little bit of that color back in here. I kind of lost the edge of my ball there. I can go back and add that back in. This ball being white will have a little bit of a white, lighter edge over here. Just a reflection. Oop, too bright. I don't want to lose that dark edge right along the bottom of that ball. So I'm going to darken that edge right there. And pull it out into my shadow. Okay. Soften the edge along the bottom. Pull a little bit of that to the front of my right in here, just a little. Soften that edge a little bit. Okay. Another thing I like to do at the end is I take the color, make sure I have a nice color. When I'm doing these black canvases, I want to have a color in my corner, because then I can take my tool, this little tool here, and I can sign it. But before I do that, I just noticed that I think I need to do a little work on this. I want these Okay, I added a little bit of color along the front here using my larger brush. Then I notice that up here, I think I want a little bit more of these branches sticking out, just a little bit more back up in here. So I'm going to go back in and add a few. Down in here, make sure that I have a little bit of these back in here behind the bear, just a touch. Kind of makes this look a little less bare. Bare, get it? Right back in here. Touch. Again, right around the bear's head is where we're going to get the most highlight, because that's our focal point. Adding a few more highlights in there isn't going to hurt. Add a little more white to my highlights so that I can get just a touch of brightness in here. A little more fullness to my tree here and there. That's all I'm doing. A couple of these make them look like they're coming out towards us a little bit more. I went up here and I highlighted my bear's face a little bit more. And then the final touch, I'm going to take my Wipeout tool and I'm just going to sign my painting down here using my Wipeout tool.